Supriya, thank you so much for joining me on the road less traveled. You're my final guest. I waited for a long time for this conversation to happen, but I'm
I
glad
waited
I,
too.
I, I saved the best for last. I think it's allowed us in the a year and a half since I first started this series to get to know each other better. So I'm hoping that getting to know each other, I can go to areas that you perhaps may not feel comfortable sharing with the rest of the world. So I'm glad we waited, and thank you.
No, thank you so much, and I'm super excited to be the last person. But yeah, I think that there's also a lot of pressure that I'm carrying now because of it. So I hope your questions are easy, Sandhya.
No pressure. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But the one question I always start this conversation with all my guests, at least this series, is and we, in all our dinners and over wines, we've not actually had this bit of a conversation. So I think it's a good place to start. Take me back to visit Supriya at 10. Was Supriya at 10 an entrepreneurial person? Was she someone who was risk taking? All of the things that one sees you today have, would I have seen in Supriya at 10?
No, not at all. In fact, you would have seen a polar opposite person. I think even now, when at family dinners or whenever, like people who've seen me through that journey, and especially like, of course, my close family and parents, they look at me today and they look at me back when I was in school, and they can't tell that it's the same person anymore. So I was like the most reserved, shy, introverted person. And if a guest would come over, I would lock myself into the room. That's how much like social fear I had. And I don't think risk would be a word that I would have even associated myself with at that time. I was the most regimented person you could meet in your life, whose timings, whether it was work, like not work, but like studying, playing, who do you talk to, who do you not talk to, everything was a process.
Wow.
And that's sort of how I grew up.
So, what happened then? Supriya, shy, reserved, followed the rules. Not that you're breaking them now, but what happened between 10 and take me to the point where something started changing? And the reason I'm asking this question, Supriya, is some people are just born with this idea that they want to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Some people, like a lot of us, and a lot of us in the country, believe we're going to follow the regular path, grades, job, all of that. But through these conversations, I'm trying to arrive at the different ways people arrive at entrepreneurship. So, 10, you're the shy kid. Take me to the point where something starts changing. The
Yeah.
glimmer of this Supriya.
I think it was the first year of college. And I think what changed was what I believed in up until the time that I was 17, 18, till the time that I gave my board exams. And what I saw in college when I came into college for the very first day was a world apart, right? Like, I think what happens is that people sell you a dream again and again that, if you do this, you're going to you're going to be able to choose a better course for you. Then if you get good marks in class 12, you'll get to the best college. And then you end up getting into college, you realize that it's all a sort of scam and, and there isn't this like glorious world waiting there for you, but you're on your own. And it's not like school where things are structured, or you have friends, you have activities lined up for you. It's You're just on your own trying to figure out what life's going to be after. And I think that was a big moment for me in college, because when I studied in Delhi University, I didn't get into the college of my choice, so it had a very bad sort of bearing on me. And I was just like, I've worked my entire life to try to get into SRCC. I missed it by point 0.5, ended up going to Venkateshwara College. Um, we were a classroom of 250 people crammed together, like typical DU scenes, like seats ran out, they didn't anticipate, everyone who made the cutoff was given places, sitting on the floor studying. So it was a very, very different kind of a culture and vibe, and like everyone from across the country, right? And what was common between everyone, Sandhya, was that they were all clueless. And everyone was going by what someone had told them. I remember, meeting for few people who wanted to do BCom and then be air hostesses. It didn't make sense to me. Most of them doing CA, which is why I also decided that that's what I wanted to do. People, talking about becoming a partner at a big four. 25 years down the line. So there were these varied like aspirations all put together in one room, but everyone was clueless, each one of them, including me. And I think that's when I felt that, something needs to be done about it. Like, this is the generation after generation, you follow that same 18-year path to get to something where you're again in an empty sea and you don't know which direction to swim in. And it was also at this time that I met Shobhit, who's my co-founder, and
Mm.
he dropped out of school to pursue sports. So you can imagine like how varied like our experiences would have been.
Yeah.
And he cycled for the Indian team and everything. And I was just like, wow, there's a world out there that I haven't even seen or I know nothing about. And we are all living in this bubble.
Yeah.
And nobody's really, like solving or tapping into their real potential. Life is just passing all of us by. And that's when the like I had this desire in me for the very first time that I don't want to be like everyone else. I don't want to do CA because of the sake of doing CA. I want to do something to change what I'm feeling right now. So I think that was the moment.
I'm getting goosebumps even as you're talking about it because I hear you. You're clueless with a bunch of 250 people who are equally clueless with perhaps some ideas of what they want to do. I don't know how many people it goes deep enough that it triggers this. I simply can't do this. But I want to stay there because I feel like that's such a aha moment. It's almost Buddha under the people tree moment.
Yeah.
But what were one or two conversations that gave were the wind behind your wings or you beneath your wings? Can you remember? Because you're
Yeah.
beginning to think like this, but it doesn't
Yeah.
happen overnight, right? There is still some triggers that need to happen. Do you remember some of those?
Yeah, I don't remember the timing of the conversations, but I do remember some things that, backed my belief or backed my sort of determination to
Hmm.
stop and like do something else. One was a conversation with a classmate of mine who was, studying BCom and everything, and then her parents wanted her to become an air hostess.
Hmm.
And I think that was something that really, really like it hit hard, right? Like she had studied to be in the top college and everything, and now it was just about like it's not
Something
something she
else.
wanted to do. And she had such a bright, I'm not saying that being an air hostess is not bright, but it was just something which was not her wish. But the family felt that it's something that's secure. And that's what they were leaning towards. Eventually, she dropped out of college to actually do that full time. So I think that was a conversation that really had an impact on me. And what had also happened at that time around was that I started watching a lot of content online. I think it was
Hmm.
also the phase of YouTube becoming big in India. And I remember watching the Steve Jobs Stanford
Which
commencement
year
speech,
was this?
2015,
Okay, so
14,
not too
15.
long ago, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And I remember at some point watching the Steve Jobs Stanford commencement speech, and something about that hit me. Then there was Thai Global, and their events had started happening. And I went to a conference where Deep Kalra was talking, and he was talking about like internet entrepreneurship. I started following people like Ankur Warikoo and Quora, who were writing on Quora back then.
Hmm.
And there was just so much happening, like there was just so much stimulus uh, from an intellectual standpoint, and everybody was saying the same thing, right? Like now is the time to get up and do something about what you feel strongly about. Now is the time to create jobs. And it was also the phase where, like internet entrepreneurship was really taking off in India for the very first time. Everything was moving towards digital. So all of that kind of just backed up my belief, and just made me realize that if it's not now, I don't know when will we get an opportunity to do this again.
Lovely. So talk to me about so suddenly the environment where you are, who you are, what you're thinking, and what's going on in the rest of the world seems to add this energy towards your current purpose, right?
Yeah.
Um, why Josh Talks? And talk to me both about the idea and then how you and Shobit came to take that forward.
Yeah. So I think, what's interesting is before even buy Josh Talks is that what you search for, you almost always get, right? And I think I had this thought that I want to do something, and then I started searching for content that just kept, it's almost psychological. I think they call it a confirmation bias. But that's what you do. You surround yourself with people who are going to tell you yes.
Yeah.
But I think that's also good in retrospect, because if you believe in something, that's how you should do it. But the reason, or the why behind Josh Talks is very simple. It's Josh, the word, which is the energy or the drive to be successful in life. And the goal or the mission really was that, like, everyone has so much potential. There is a divide between people because of the lack of resources or the exposure that they have. While we went to a school in Delhi, or, like, I studied in a good college, I may take a different path towards life, but somebody who came from a smaller town or city in India, who may not even know English, has a very, very different trajectory because of the exposure that they've received. And can we bridge this exposure gap? And can we use stories of people who've done this? So, similar to the conversation we're having today, but can we use a stage and a platform to shake people up and show them that if if I can do it, you can do it, and your background's got nothing on you. Which was the most common problem that we found in our target audience, was this, this desire to not get up from the background. It's just this acceptance that I've been born into debt, I will live in debt, I will die in debt. Or, like, हमारे साथ तो ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. I don't believe that the world will change for people like us. And I think that's what we wanted to really get rid of. And that's why Josh.
Nice. And then Shobit and you coming together, what was that? I mean, how do you? Yes, he is also someone. The brief time I've met him and spoken to you, isn't that at that point in his journey also? I want to make a change. I want to do something, but he's
Yeah,
also already been slightly adventurous in the path he's chosen. How
yeah,
do how do Supriya and Shobit decide to join forces? Because it's a very important, and the reason I ask that, Supriya, is a lot of an organization's success is the coming together of the right people,
yeah,
the two
yeah,
founders. So I'm curious.
yeah. Yeah, I think, it wasn't. I think a lot of people say that you just find someone and then, like, everything, the stars align, and then you start working towards. But I feel like it takes a very long time to establish a working relationship which is solid, which brings people who are, from very different backgrounds together towards one common purpose, and helps you kind of figure out who's going to be doing what. uh, it changes and evolves as the company or the organization changes and evolves, and so do your and, like, our roles, right? But I think what was really important, or what clicked between Shobit and me when we started out, was that we were very different people. Like, he brought in a lot of energy, he brought in a lot of, like, he's the visionary, right? Like, he's someone who came up with the idea of Josh Talks. I jumped in saying this is the way that it needs to be done. But I think that's what really brought us together, is that uh, behind, every idea, there has to be a strong execution plan, and
Yeah.
something that you measure and you're working towards. And I felt like that was my strength, or where I could add value. And even today, it's sort of like that, right? Like, any product from 0 to 1, we always show it. He spends time meeting our users. He travels to areas like Bihar and UP, even in Gurgaon. He lived in Sikandarpur and Chakrapur for the longest time with Swiggy delivery executives, to really understand their issues and figure out, if we are even serving their problems. But what I do is, once we have that data back in the office, I use that data to make decisions and move forward. So it's a very interesting sort
Complementary,
of, yeah,
complementary.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, the other thing, the other theme that I talk about in these conversations is failure. Not to
Yeah,
romanticize failure, but really it's very, very real. And failure is actually success, WIP, right? Failure is not failure on its own. When you started and where you are now, talk to me about a couple things that had you take a step back and saying, God, what were we thinking? Or uh, are we ever going to get this right? Or something
yeah.
that made you really wonder if this was the right decision.
I think it's almost on a everyday basis, right? Like, and it's more about, like, doubt and failure both. It's I kind of look at it in the same way. But over the time that we've spent on this, there have been several moments which have, like, shaken us to our core, which have been just like, why are we even doing this? Or is this worth giving our 20s to? or is there an outcome at the end of this? And small episodes just leading to that thought. For example, like we did one of our largest conferences in 2016 called, when we were still like, doing offline events, it was called Josh Talks Leap. It's what everybody in colleges in India recognize us for, because it was the one time that we had like 7,000 people in a stadium coming together to
Wow.
listen to these stories, which were so-called boring lectures. But 4 days before the conference, we didn't have any sponsors. And you can imagine, like a stadium, we had like small tickets that had pulled out. We didn't know what to do. We were at like, double digits in our bank account. And it was a terrible mess. And the only option that was there was to kind of cancel.
Hmm.
And at that time, I think it was like that first jolt, right? Like everything's going fine. You worked your really hard to make something happen, and then it's just you see it falling apart. And that was really tough. But then obviously, like we all came together, we turned everything around. Instead of looking for sponsors, we like reached out to schools to buy bulk tickets to cover the cost for people who couldn't afford it. We set up like this entire hall which had some 200 food stalls. So like a sponsorship would sell for 50 lakhs. We gave food stalls for like 40, 50,000, and had like a full mela and said, okay, it's a mela and people are coming, 6,000 people are coming. And that's how we convinced a bunch of people to come, and pay us for the stall space. And that's how we were able to cover some of the costs. Even till today, the production guy has not taken money from us beyond what was like a certain percentage, 70%. And he just said that I was there for 2 days, and I felt something that I've never felt in my life before. And after that, I realized that I don't want this. I don't want to take money, because he told me pay you in installments. But yeah,
But my takeaway from that is, yes, you will hit roadblocks, but it's also about not giving up and innovating, right? I just had a conversation as part of the series with Harish Hande 3 days ago.
yeah,
And he said something to me. He said, Sandhya, it's not about, if you have a purpose, it's not about giving up. He said,
hmm.
one way doesn't work, you have to try the other 10. It may
Yeah.
not work in the exact permutation and combination that you designed it, but at the first hint of something not going the way you visualized it is no excuse to give up. And I feel like that's such an entrepreneurial trait to have,
Hmm.
not
No,
to give up,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, and I think this got echoed recently. I was in Bangalore and we were doing like a small meetup for like education founders. And this one guy, he just asked, so how long have you been doing this? And I said 7 years.
Hmm.
And for 5 minutes, he was just like in shock. And then he was like, this is what I love, persistence. And then obviously I came to know about his journey, and he had like run 4 companies that hadn't been successful before this. So he's been at it for 10 years. So, but I think one thing that's really common in all entrepreneurs, and I think it's the most valuable trait, is this feeling, or just being super persistent. I don't think there is any, like, I don't think it's not really about risk taking for me, or it's not about a different set of genes that you're born with. But I think if you have the ability to just persist through everything that comes your way, I think that really defines who an entrepreneur is.
I'm
Yeah.
glad we spoke about that because that's a theme that comes up all the time. Supriya, I know you're in the almost like, can I call it Josh Talks 2.0? There's a
Yeah,
certain shift.
absolutely.
What led to that? What for our audiences? Most people know you, but for our audiences, tell us what that change has meant. What,
Yeah.
how, who were you, and what led to the change?
Yeah, I think so. Over the last 5 years, we were a media company where the goal was to reach out to people across the country, inspire them to do something big with their life. What we realized in that journey was that we were able to do that, but we were just leaving someone at the time that they were energized,
Hmm.
and a lot of comments started coming on our videos saying that I now have the ability to dream, but I still don't know how to speak in English, so this job is not even for me. Or like, I don't have the skill sets to even give a job interview. Or very very emotional things like sapna to dikha diya, but hamare paas to paise nahi hai.
Hmm.
And these problems, just like, this became a collective voice, right? And it wasn't like one person, 2 person, or 3 people. This is like 10, 20, 30,000 people echoing the same sentiment day in and day out, कि जोश हमारी हेल्प तो कर दो आप लोग, and अब क्या करोगे and everything. And that's when we started like revisiting the idea of what we had. It was something that was already always there in terms of like the long-term vision was
Mm.
that we wanted to get into education. We just didn't know when. And
Yeah,
that's
the
when
demand
we
almost came from the ground.
yeah, absolutely. It was like people said that they wanted us and they needed a solution to help with their skilling problems. The first being the inability to speak in English fluently, which is like a 600 million people problem in India.
Mm.
And that's when we said that, okay, now is the time. Like, we built this strong distribution. People recognize us, they love our brand, they associate us with a brand that can actually help them.
Mm.
And now we're in our journey where we are moving from, can help to have helped, where we are actually like giving tools to people to learn, and are now taking on that journey with them for them to become employable, for them to crack different exams or whatever it is, the next step that they want to take after they've seen a Josh talk. So it's very different. It's our DNA has been content. We're moving now towards completely like content, but tech driven company. So it's been like a shift in mindset in how you build. Joe Stocks was like a super profitable company, monetized through ads. Things are very different here. So it's just learning and unlearning and then going from there.
What does Supriya do to keep herself motivated? Because it's one is this is your purpose. It already drives you. We spoke about persistence, but there are days like we all have blah days. Is there one thing? Is there a story that comes back to you? Because sometimes when I'm having not a great day, there's a song I listen to. I
Which
don't
one
mean
is
that
that?
it's sad, but it's KK's Yaro. It just kind of
Hmm.
wakes me up and it just makes me believe for some reason.
Yeah.
But for you, perhaps it's one of your stories from your
Yeah.
Josh talks. Is there something that says, no, Supriya,
Yeah.
you're doing good. Go on.
Yeah, I think there are many stories. There are, but one or two of them that just keep coming back is like the story of the daughter of a bar dancer who gave a Josh talks. And she had gone to the US drum school on 100% scholarship. And this was her story of, living in Kamatipura, looking at her mother being raped every single day, then getting interested in drums because in Bombay, Ganesh Chaturthi is really big. So from her window, she used to hear the song of the dhol. Then she self-taught herself, applied and actually got a 100% scholarship. And now she's teaching drums to so many young kids. And I think when you see that, right, when you're living that every single day, where you're looking at the background where a lot of people come from and where they reach, your problems become so small that
Mm.
it's almost like, how can you not do this? How can you
Yeah.
feel this way?
Wow.
But but yeah, I think it's also emotionally overwhelming to be around all of that, because then you're just like putting yourself through this wave of emotion, saying that are you even right to feel this way? But I don't have a song, but I have a movie which is called Jo Jeeta Wahi Sikandar.
Is that your upbeat film?
Yeah, that's my upbeat movie because like I used to watch it in school a lot with my brother. And I think from the very beginning, right, like we as a country love the underdog winning, and that movie is like a pure uh,
Underdog winning.
3.5 hour energy boost into someone winning. So
Yeah.
I turn to that a lot whenever I feel like I need a day where I need to regain my Josh.
You're one of my favorite entrepreneurs. Who is your favorite entrepreneur outside of Josh Talks? Who's someone that inspires you? Whose story is you?
So yeah, I think for different phases there have been different, but one entrepreneur who I'm continuously inspired by is Sarah, who's the founder of Spanx.
Mm.
It's an American company,
Yes.
and she came as one of the judges on Shark Tank in the US, and that's when I came to know of who she was as a person. But what I absolutely love about her is her ability to build like a mission-driven company, but
Mm.
also have so much fun while doing it. Because like often what I used to think, or like early on, was that you have to break yourself to build something large, right? Like
Life
you have
stops if
to
you're going to kind of be
yeah,
successful, but it's not
yeah,
true.
it's
Yeah.
not true. And she is a pure example of someone who had an idea, who persisted. She worked super hard, right? And her story is about all the rejections that she came through. But there is this spark of energy and innocence in her, which is still there after all these years. And I think that's something that I really look up to. especially now, like with the journey that we are on right now, where we've been doing this for 7 years and we know that we're going to be doing this for at least the next 2 decades. I think that's someone who's super relatable and I'm inspired by every day.
Lovely. What's an overrated entrepreneur trait that you hear and say, no, it's not that, or something that's overrated about entrepreneurship?
I think the hustle culture is super overrated
Mm,
because it's like it puts you and I'm saying it because I would have been a propagate like I would have been talking about this probably like 3 to 4 years back as well. Is this like I've spoken to a lot of people and they feel like if you're not working 7 days, you're not doing something right. And
mm,
there are phases where you need to. There are phases
mm,
where your work has to consume you, and nobody's saying that there's a problem with it. But it can't be a mindset. Like you can't always be feeling bad because you're not doing something on a certain day. Like it's almost expected that you will give up your entire life. Which I think is super overrated because a lot of successful people have been able to build businesses just by managing them time well and taking out time for a lot of other things too.
I think,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that you've recognized that because we can feed ourselves these narratives, right? That you can be equally consumed, you can be equally committed to something, but also do things outside of that are a soul food for Supriya the person, right?
Yeah.
And I want to come. That's a nice segue to my next question. All the soul food for Supriya. What show are you watching right now?
Oh, I was watching this show called Dirty John.
And
And
what?
now the second season is Dirty Betty. Oh, it's yeah, like my weekend Netflix binges may not be the best, but it's about a con artist like
It, it's
who
what works for
John.
you, right? The
Yeah,
soul food.
yeah. But before this, I saw Super Pumped, which was a show that I really liked. It's the story of Uber.
Oh, nice. Really?
Yeah.
It's on Netflix? I should watch it.
No, it's actually on it's on Sony Live, I think. Yeah.
On a day off, what's Supriya's idea of a perfect day? What's your downtime day?
So a lot of doing nothing and just thinking because usually I don't get time to and I think like when it's a downtime day it's just being with myself for a couple of hours. But this, so like I'm a big foodie and I love exploring new places. And now that I'm spending a lot of time in Bangalore, that's something which I do typically on Sundays, which is discover a new place or especially a new cafe. Like I love going and sitting in coffee shops and just people watch.
I have a new
Yeah,
list. Remind me, I will share that with you. So that's what you
yeah,
like. What's your
yeah.
favorite food? What's the cuisine you
Chinese,
like? Chinese.
Asian, yeah, Asian of any kind.
Yeah.
Like I'm
And
obsessed.
do you have a favorite getaway?
So in terms of like a travel destination,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think I have a few, but I really like I love beaches.
Mm.
So wherever there's a beach, I'm happy.
So if you had to choose to get away, it's usually a beach destination.
Yeah, it's near the water. I think like just looking at water is something that I don't know. I'm
Get it.
beginning to sound super strange, but yeah, I think
No,
looking at
no, I
water just
love.
gives
For me,
me something.
I do eventually want to go and live by the sea.
Yeah,
What's a book you go back to? Are you a reader? And even if you're not a
yeah.
voracious reader, but is there a book that you just go back to?
Yeah, I've been so I read this book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things a lot
Mm.
every 6 months because every 6 months the perspective changes with the situation that you're in. So
Right.
that's a book that I really like. I think it's something that like everybody in office also knows. It's my most gifted book. For every occasion, it's something that I give someone. But yeah, I think that book left a very deep impact on me. Continues to
And
do
there are
so.
things about books, right? And this is something Naval Ravikant, something he tweeted that resonated. He said it's yes, a lot of times we emphasize, oh, voracious in reading lots of books. He said,
Hmm.
actually, there's greater value in going back to the books that gave you something. And every
Yeah.
time you visit them, you're able to look at something with a different perspective and take it away. So, this is
Yeah.
that book for you.
Yeah, and I think what really helped me do this was so I was a very physical book copy reader. And then Ankur Warikoo told me, I mean, he's a big Kindle buff, right? And he said that it's something that you should invest in. And I got a Kindle, but I think the best part about the Kindle is that you can highlight. certain paragraphs and then just go back to those lines, only those. And that's something that I do a lot now.
5 years from now, we met Supriya at 10.
10
And where will I meet Supriya at say 32? What
on
would
the screen.
on the screen? It takes me a long time to get you on the screen. So
No.
what do you want to be doing then? What's your vision for Josh Talks in 5 years? What's and you will be part of that, but what's a vision for you too? Something.
I think the vision for Josh Talks for the next 5 years is to go deeper into education and education with outcomes associated, whether it's helping people crack exams, helping people get the right kind of jobs, but actually completing that circle where you've watched the Josh Talks, you've now learned something from us, and it's actually helped you in your career. Like your income has gone up as a result of something that we made you go through. So I honestly have a very hard time disassociating myself from Josh, and I feel like it's one of my biggest. I don't know if it's a strength or a weakness, but it's. I almost feel like it's my identity, and the organization is always the same, and so my aspirations directly become linked to it. So I don't know what I will be doing 5 years later or how I see myself, but I'm definitely going to be doing this.
Lovely. And so I want to end with what I think of, having been introduced briefly to uh, Supriya at 10. It's like the Virginia Slims ad. You've come a long way, baby.
Yeah.
Thanks, Supriya. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.